It was a casual little brunch we threw for Sierra's new job, nothing too fancy, just close friends and our family gathering at this hip cafe tucked away in downtown Boulder. She had just snagged a mid-level position at some tech startup that was blowing up fast, and the whole table buzzed with cheers, champagne glasses clinking, and endless stories all orbiting around her. I found myself tucked into the seat way down at the end by the big front window. My coffee had gone ice cold by then, but I kept absently stirring it anyway, one of those old nervous habits I never quite shook off. Nobody really paid me any mind. Not that it was new. The spotlight was, as always, locked on Sierra. She sat there with her legs crossed just so, the sunlight bouncing off the massive rock on her finger and the fresh polish on her nails. "Penny," she called out in that syrupy sweet voice of hers, loud enough to cut across the table and make sure everyone heard. "You're still, what, freelancing? At your age." Before I could even open my mouth to respond, she tossed her head back and laughed, a sharp, glittery sound. She turned to her friend, adding, "She just can't seem to figure out what being an adult looks like." Like, seriously, get it together. No one else really laughed, just Sierra, clearly proud of her own cruelty. And just in case her jab hadn't landed hard enough, she tacked on, even louder, "Some folks just suck the life out of successful people instead of becoming one themselves." I didn't even blink. I didn't lift my eyes. I just pressed my lips into a thin line and kept on stirring that poor coffee. "Mom," muttered Sierra, cut it out, under her breath, but my sister just rolled her shoulders like it was no big deal. In Sierra's world, silence was the same thing as losing. Dad, bless him, tried awkwardly to change the subject, something about the avocado toast needing more salt, but Sierra's smirk just lingered there, thick and smug in the air. They all thought they were ignoring me, pushing me to the edges like I didn't matter. But honestly, that invisibility had become my secret armor. They had no idea. No clue that I, Penny Lockwood, was actually the co-founder of Insight Nest, one of the fastest rising data firms in the country. And the kicker? Sierra, queen of the stage, had just been hired by Insight Nest. She had no idea whose company she was stepping into. And I sure as hell wasn't planning on giving away the punchline early. I was used to being invisible. I knew how to wield it. This wasn't anything new. It had been like this long before brunches and tech startups. I still remember my 11th birthday like it happened yesterday. The cake was sitting there on the kitchen counter, candles glowing, everyone gathering around ready to sing. I closed my eyes to make my wish, and right then, Sierra came barreling in from the hallway, waving a huge gold trophy over her head, fresh off her big win at some tri-state dance competition. Mom's voice practically drowned out the birthday song itself, shouting with pride about Sierra's victory. The whole crowd clapped and hooped. Cameras spun toward her. I just stood there by my little cake, the candles flickering, waiting. No one asked me what my wish was. Heck, I didn't even bother blowing them out. That was the first moment I really understood. I was never gonna be the main event. Sierra was the born headliner. She was bright, loud, dazzling, always ready for a show. Me? I craved quiet. I liked tinkering, unraveling puzzles, figuring out how things ticked, whether it was the TV remote, an old toaster, or lines of messy code. That same year, Dad gave me a battered old laptop, a used Dell, and I wrote my very first algorithm. From that moment, I was hooked. Mom used to laugh and say, "Penny could sit in one spot for 6 hours and you'd barely hear a peep." Dad would always joke, "We got ourselves a firecracker and a flashlight in this house. Guess which one's which?" And really, there was no guessing. Sierra was the firecracker, all explosion and flash. Me? I was the steady, quiet beam no one noticed, but the one that never went out. As we grew up, not much changed. Sierra studied communications, landed small gigs on local TV, launched a lifestyle brand that got a little buzz online before falling apart thanks to some very questionable bookkeeping. Meanwhile, I enrolled in a small tech college, kept my head down. built systems, graduated with top honors. Nobody from my family even showed up. They were busy helping Sierra plan a photo shoot for her latest product launch. But honestly, I wasn't even mad. I just kept building. In silence. By 29, I teamed up with Lucas, my old college roommate, and we launched Insight Nest. We hacked away in cramped coffee shops, pitched our wild dreams at startup expos, lived off cheap instant noodles and stubborn hope. Lucas became the loud, friendly face of the company. I stayed in the background, the engine making it all run. 3 years later, Insight Nest had grown into a $100 million powerhouse. I owned almost half. And yet, my name wasn't plastered anywhere. I didn't need it to be. And now Sierra, the sister who never once looked past the spotlight, was walking right into my world without the faintest clue. The official offer letter went out first thing the next morning. Sierra Lockwood, budget analyst, Insight Nest. Salary greenlit. Start date, Monday. She didn't have a clue that the final thumbs up had come from me. Only Lucas was in on the real story, that I wasn't just some tech consultant dialing in from random coffee shops. I was a co-founder right there from day one. We had agreed early on, only Lucas's name would be public. He had the gift for it, the smooth talk, the easy charm, the way people just instantly trusted him. Me? I was happier staying in the background, designing the structure that made everything work. I'd seen what happened when founders became the face of their company. You stopped owning your life. I didn't need magazine covers. I needed control. So, inside Insight Nest, I was just Penny, the senior systems lead who clocked odd hours and always had her camera turned off on Zoom. I only set foot in the office maybe once a week, and even then, only after 7 p.m. when the lights were low and the espresso machine was already wiped down for the night. The rest of the time, I pulled the strings quietly, managing the company's architecture, reviewing departmental budgets, signing off major decisions from behind layers of encrypted access. Lucas was the one giving speeches, shaking hands, and smiling for the press. Not once, not even by accident, did he let anything slip about who I really was. Sometimes I wondered if staying invisible was smart. But then, I watched Sierra stroll through the front doors of the empire I'd built, head held high, ambition practically radiating off her. And I knew deep down, staying hidden had been necessary. On her first day, I didn't show up. Instead, I logged into the internal security cams, a system I had quietly designed myself. Through the grainy kitchen feed on the 9th floor, I spotted her laughing, pouring herself a cup of coffee, charming a new coworker. "This place is insane," she said, grinning. And get this, no one's ever even seen the founders. Some say the second one's just a ghost on the legal docs. I couldn't help but chuckle. Being called a ghost wasn't exactly new. Later that day, Lucas FaceTimed me, his grin just barely contained. "She's settling in quick," he said. Polished, bold, definitely Sierra. Still totally clueless about who's signing off her approvals. "You good with staying in the shadows for now?" I leaned back in my chair and said, "Let's leave it that way. If she's here to do real work, perfect. If she's here to play the hero, well, the truth will sort that out." I wasn't looking for revenge. I wanted to see who she really was without an audience clapping for her every move. 2 quiet weeks ticked by. One night, down in the basement server room, while I was double-checking our backup security layers, I heard it, sharp, confident clicks of heels echoing down the hall. I peeked out, and there she was. Frozen mid-step. "Penny," she said slowly, suspicion sharpening her voice. What are you doing down here? Only management's supposed to have access." I smiled coolly and said, "Well, guess that means I'm management." Her head tilted a little, puzzled, just as Lucas came strolling out of the nearby storage room, holding a thick folder. "Hey, Penny," he called out casually, "need your sign-off on the Q3 model before end of the week." I took the folder, feeling Sierra's stare burning into me the whole time. She didn't say a word, but I could see it, the first crack in her understanding. She had just caught her first real glimpse of the truth. And I couldn't wait to see what she would do with it. That morning, Boulder was wrapped up in heavy mist, the kind that made downtown look like a half-drawn sketch. I had just signed off on the finalized Q3 report when my phone buzzed. Lucas again. Penny, he said with a soft laugh, I think your sister's finally putting 2 and 2 together. I raised one eyebrow, just as a fresh email alert slid across my laptop screen. Subject, Unmatched Executive Signature PN42 to Body. Please confirm executive authorization. My heartbeat slowed. After nearly 2 months of playing it cool, the clock had started ticking. In that time, Sierra had adapted fast, charming in team meetings, assertive during budget calls, just like she always had been when there was something at stake. I kept a low profile, approving Sierra's requests one by one, always using just my internal ID, PN42. She'd seen it pop up next to budget approvals, contract memos, and greenlight initiatives. But my full name? She hadn't stumbled across that yet. Not until now. One morning, tucked in a corner booth of the company cafe, half hiding behind a wrinkled newspaper, I heard her voice cut through the buzz. Who even is this Penny N? Sierra asked one of her new colleagues, her tone casual but sharp. I keep spotting that name buried in the financial logs. Nobody seems to know a damn thing about her. Her coworker just shrugged. People say she's like a ghost. Signs off the big stuff, but never shows up. Sierra let out a dry laugh. Figures. Shadow execs. I don't trust people I can't look in the eye. I wrapped my hands tighter around my coffee cup, feeling the heat seep into my skin. Still, after all these years, she hadn't learned. Not everything real needs a spotlight. 3 days later, curiosity got the best of her. Sierra marched straight into finance and demanded access to the executive archives. Her clearance was high enough, she got in without a fuss. File after file flipped open under her fingers, until she hit the one. My full name. Penny Norwood. Co-founder. Chief Technical Officer. The same sister who once joked I was too lazy to get a real job was now staring straight at the signature that had authorized her first paycheck. That afternoon, an internal system alert pinged my phone. Access flagged. Lockwood. Executive Founders Archive pulled. I pictured her in that moment, standing there, probably frozen, reading the documents, founding partners, Penny Norwood and Lucas Price. Split down the middle, 50-50, my title listed clear as Day, CTO. Sierra wasn't the type to have big emotional explosions. When reality hit her, she just went quiet. But her eyes, they burned when she got hit by the truth that I showed up to the office earlier than usual, needing to see it for myself. And sure enough, there she was in the second-floor break room, clutching a printout like it might dissolve if she let go. You doing all right? I asked, my voice easy. She spun around. Her voice was tight low. You're the co-founder? I nodded slowly. Since day one. Lucas and I built this from a busted laptop at a coffee shop on Hawthorne Street, I said. Back when you called me, what was it? Perpetually unemployed. She gave a humorless little laugh. So I've been working under you this whole time. You've been doing good work, I said. Just plain, no sugarcoating. That's why you're still here. She stared down at the crumpled paper in her hand. I pulled a clean proposal from my folder and held it out, a nonprofit initiative we were about to launch, focused on giving rural schools better access to tech resources. You'd be great for this project, I added. She didn't take it, but her expression shifted, just slightly, like the ground underneath her had cracked and tilted. I didn't push. I just turned and walked away. Sierra would need time to sit with it. For the first time in years, though, she wasn't looking at me with mockery or pity. There was something else in her eyes now, something quieter. Maybe even respect. The 5-year gala for Insight Nest was held at this absurdly beautiful glass palace clinging to the cliffs above Boulder's skyline, one of those places where the walls seemed to dissolve into the mountains and sky, inside the guest dressing suite. I stood in front of a mirror, smoothing the hem of a sleek, black dress. My hair was pulled back in a clean knot, a whisper of rose lipstick, the only real color on me. I didn't dress to stand out. I dressed to belong, even if the idea still knotted my stomach into something fierce. There was always a strange kind of comfort in staying unseen, letting the noise wash over me while I built in silence. But tonight felt different. Lucas tapped lightly on the doorframe, poking his head in. "You ready, Penny?" I exhaled slow. "Not really," I admitted with a little half-smile. "But maybe nobody ever really is." He grinned. "You're not just stepping into the light tonight. You're owning it. The whole damn thing you built." And so, together, we walked out from the wings as the house lights dimmed, into a room full of faces that had no idea who had been holding the architecture together all along. But tonight they would. The MC's voice lifted and danced through the crystalline acoustics of the hall. "And now, please welcome the two co-founders of Pulsemetrics, Derek Lynn and Harper Jameson." Applause cracked through the air, sharper and louder than I'd braced for. I moved forward slowly, deliberately, not rushing the moment, not hiding, and then I saw her, Sierra, standing near the back of the grand hall, clutching a champagne flute she hadn't even tasted, frozen halfway between disbelief and something harder to name. She didn't blink, didn't move. The world she had always known, where I lived in the corners, invisible, had just cracked wide open. I recognized that exact feeling. It's what hit me the day we signed our first $1 million contract. That shocking moment when the thing you quietly built, the thing you protected in silence, suddenly became real, undeniable. Derek took the mic first, his voice easy and bright. Like always, he told the origin story. 2 friends, 2 half-broken laptops, a cramped studio, coding through thunderstorms and exhaustion, betting everything on the idea that you could teach machines not just to calculate, but to understand. The audience laughed in the right spots, clapped at the milestones. Then Derek turned, held out the mic toward me, and the room shifted. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't a ghost behind a firewall. I wasn't a signature on a budget filed. I was just there. I stepped forward, inhaled once, slow and deep. "Hi, everyone," I said. My voice didn't waver. "I'm Harper Jameson." Soft laughter rumbled through the room, warm, surprised, forgiving. Not mocking, I smiled slightly, finding my footing. "I'm not exactly a natural at public speaking," I added. Honestly, I never thought I'd be standing here at all. 5 years ago, all Derek and I had was a cracked couch and an idea. Another ripple of laughter, but quieter now, respectful. We believe technology, if built with intention, could empower people, not replace them. I paused, let the silence breathe. I scanned the faces, searching, and found her. Sierra hadn't moved from her spot. The flute sat abandoned on a side table. Her arms were stiff at her sides, her face unreadable, but her eyes were locked onto me like a cipher she couldn't solve. "I know I'm not the public face of Pulsemetrics," I said, my voice softening. "That's been a choice. But tonight, I wanted to offer more than approvals from a distance. I wanted to offer presence. Not for recognition. For gratitude." The applause rose again, deeper this time. Not polite. Genuine. I stepped back, handing the mic off, and slipped down from the stage as the house lights swung toward the dining floor. I headed for the buffet, instincts pulling me toward a quiet corner like always, but peace wasn't an option tonight. Every few steps, someone stopped me. "You're Harper? We thought you were a myth. Legend-level stealth. Seriously. I heard you didn't even have an office, just a VPN and a prayer." I smiled, laughed lightly, offered small, tired answers, but my mind was elsewhere. I glanced back toward the marble pillar where Sierra had stood. Gone. I didn't see her leave, didn't know how much she heard, but I felt it, the sudden shift in the air, like a pressure drop. An absence I hadn't expected to miss. Later that night, back home, I peeled off my heels and collapsed into the couch. The apartment felt cavernous after the noise of the gala. My phone vibrated nonstop. Messages poured in from engineers, from old college friends, from our investors, even from my parents. "Proud of you, Harper. What a night. You earned every second of it." I smiled at a few, answered where it mattered, deleted the ones that felt like people chasing after the moment. But from Sierra, nothing. Not even a half-hearted congrats. Sitting there in the half-lit quiet, I opened the gala's live stream replay, scrubbed forward to the moment I stepped onto the stage, and hit pause. On screen, I watched myself walk into the light. A version of me I didn't quite recognize yet. I didn't press play. I stared at the still frame in the spotlight. What did Melody see? A stranger, or the little sister she'd once rolled her eyes at, dismissing me as nothing more than the quiet one, obsessed with spreadsheets and numbers? 2 days later, I found myself walking into the office earlier than usual. IT wasn't for contracts or system updates. It was for something personal. I entered the 11th floor conference room. Hidden away in a drawer I'd claimed as my own was a small walnut box. It had traveled with me since college, through apartments, across various offices, through the hum of server rooms and late-night coding. Inside it, I kept only 3 things: a navy linen notebook, a black fountain pen, and a handwritten card. It had taken me over an hour to write the card, not because the words were difficult, but because I wanted them to feel true. Every word had weight. Melody, thank you for what you've contributed to Pulsometrics so far. You're talented, smart, and I believe you'll go far. I'm proud to work with you, even if we began in silence. Harpered, no sister. No from your sibling. Just facts and a choice. I sealed the card inside the notebook and walked down the hall to the internal mail assistant. Deliver this to Melody Jameson. No sender. I didn't expect a reply. Didn't need one. It wasn't an olive branch. It was just a door. Quiet, unlocked. She could choose whether or not to walk through. The rest of the week passed in silence. No message from Melody. No email. No thank you note. Just space. But something shifted. I started noticing small things. Her presence in meetings had changed. She no longer leaned back, arms crossed, eyes half disinterested. Instead, she came in early, took detailed notes, asked smart, deliberate questions. Her voice, once fine-tuned for performance, had settled into something steadier, more grounded. One afternoon, as I stood quietly just outside the conference room, I could hear her presenting a revised budget strategy for an AI initiative that had exceeded projections. She walked through the cost forecasts and adjusted modeling as if she'd built the system herself. Her tone was calm, confident, clear. Her posture no longer screamed, "Notice me," it simply said, "I came to contribute, I didn't interrupt." I stayed in the hallway, hands in my coat pockets, nodding once to myself. The following week, HR circulated a staff-wide announcement. A proposal submitted by Melody Jameson. The title read, "Lift as You Lead, Internal Sponsorship Initiative." IT was a plan to support junior staff, especially women in non-traditional tech roles, by launching mentorship circles and quarterly workshops hosted by department leads. Under inspiration, she had written in italics, inspired by the quiet mission of Harper Jameson. I read the proposal 3 times, slowly, letting each word settle. I wasn't looking for recognition, but somehow that one simple line, made the weight I didn't know I'd been carrying feel just a little lighter. That afternoon, I entered the break room at my usual time, expecting the quiet hum of coffee brewing and idle chatter. But Melody was alone. She stood by the counter, pouring hot water into the electric kettle. No one else around, no spotlight, no audience. When she turned and saw me, we both paused. Her eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes I'd grown used to over the years, were different. No sharp edges this time. No tension in her shoulders, no armor. Just quiet awareness. The gap between us felt thinner. Like something in the air had changed. She gave a slight nod, and for the first time, I didn't see her as the sister who once mocked me for being invisible. I saw someone who was finally listening. I was about to walk past her, like any other regular moment in an afternoon when she spoke. "The pen is beautiful," she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth I hadn't expected. "And the notebook. I've written a few pages in it already." I stopped, surprised, but I stayed calm. Her words hung there, tentative, but there was a shift. A new kind of understanding. I turned toward her slowly, the subtle recognition settling in the space between us. This wasn't just an exchange about a pen and a notebook. It was something else. A shift that neither of us had fully acknowledged until now. She gave a slight nod, staring at the mug in her hands like it held more than tea. I don't think I ever really understood you, she said after a pause. Or maybe I just never tried. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Sometimes silence is the only way to let someone finish. There's something I want to say, she continued, her voice dipping lower, more sincere than I'd heard in years. You didn't have to give me a chance here. Not after everything I said. But you did. And you never threw it in my face. You didn't try to outshine me, or humiliate me, or make some grand statement. She looked up, her eyes uncertain but open. That says more about who you are than anything I've ever believed about you. For a moment, I didn't see the sister who once interrupted my birthday wish with a trophy. I didn't see the girl who mocked me at brunch in front of the whole family. I saw a woman slowly unlearning pride, slowly relearning grace. I don't know if I can make it right, she admitted, the words trembling. But I'll try. A quiet breath left my chest, the kind you don't realize you've been holding for years. We don't need to replay the past, I said. We'd just begin from now. We stood there a little longer, side by side. No spotlight, no witnesses, just stillness and soft understanding. There were no grand gestures, no movie scene apologies, just truth. Finally acknowledged, and that was enough. And somehow things did change. Melody wasn't the loudest person in the room anymore. She listened more. Interrupted less. She let junior voices finish their thoughts, even if they stumbled. She volunteered for the unglamorous work, the budget audits, the spreadsheet cleanups, the behind-the-scenes grind she once mocked. And me. I stopped avoiding my own reflection. I started speaking at technical briefings. Took the mic during onboarding sessions. I stood in front of interns and told them, not with ego, but with clarity, that you don't have to be loud to lead. You just have to know where you're going. One Friday afternoon, as I was packing up to leave. I passed the recognition wall by the elevators. Her name was listed at the top. Q2 top contributor, Melody Jameson. She stood a few feet away, reading it quietly. When our eyes met, she offered a small smile. Thank you, she said, for not giving up on me. I smiled back. We're just getting started. That Sunday, our family met at our usual brunch spot, a sunny cafe near Pack Square with chipped wood chairs and the smell of maple syrup lingering in the air. Everything looked the same, but something felt different. Melody showed up a few minutes late. No flashy heels, no makeup. Just a white blouse, jeans, and a loosely tied ponytail. She walked up to me and gave a simple nod. I nodded back. No dramatic gesture. Just presence. Later, as my mom rambled on about her tomato garden, Uncle Ron turned to me and grinned. So, Harper, still doing that computer tinkering thing? Must be fun sitting in front of numbers all day. I smiled. Before I could answer, Melody set her mug down. Uncle, she said clearly, Harp is the smartest person I've ever known. Without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. The table quieted. She looked straight at me. She taught me something I used to ignore. That real strength doesn't always speak first. It builds quietly. And when it's ready, it speaks through actions, not applause. Uncle Ron blinked. My aunt gave a small, thoughtful nod. My mom reached over and gently squeezed my hand. After the meal, as we packed up to leave, Melody stepped beside me, jacket in hand. You don't have to forgive me, she whispered, but I'm not the same person anymore. I turned to her and, for the first time in a long time, I smiled from a place that wasn't guarded. I know, I said. And I never needed you to apologize. We walked out in silence, but it wasn't the kind that keeps people apart. It was the kind that allows something new to begin. Later that evening, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the lights of Asheville blur into the hills. A message from Derek popped up on my screen. Heard brunch wasn't half bad today. I replied, not bad. Let's call it a new beginning. Because sometimes healing doesn't arrive with fanfare, it arrives when people finally see each other. Not through old expectations, but through quiet, honest understanding. Melody and I will never be the picture-perfect sisters, but we're no longer standing on opposite sides. We're two grown women, both changed, both still learning. And to me, that's more than enough to close one chapter and quietly begin the next.